1956. Let's see. The first hard drive was invented. By the way, it weighed over 2,000 pounds. Elvis Presley made his first national TV appearance. The Summer Olympics were hosted by Melbourne, Australia for the first time. My father was 14 years away from being born, and I, more than 40. Now, why am I giving you this flashback, this revisit to the year 1956? Well, in 1956, at Dartmouth University, researchers were imagining machines that could replicate facets of human reasoning. As a result, they coined the term artificial intelligence, or AI. Over the next decade, symbolic AI and early neural network, they laid the foundations of the technology. But it was the advent of deep learning and the breakthroughs of generative modeling that made generative AI, or Gen AI, capable of producing remarkably fluent, creative-seeming content, such as images and essays. Not so long ago, in 2017, 8 scientists at Google wrote a path-breaking research paper titled "Attention is All You Need," which introduced something called a transformer. It is a new deep learning architecture. By the way, the GPT that we use today, the T stands for transformer. And it did just that. It transformed the landscape of AI as we know it. In just a few years, we landed on something that, from engineers to economists, everybody calls the AI boom. Generative AI has gone from an academic lab curiosity to a tool adopted across education, design, communication, and beyond. But as Uncle Ben from Spider-Man taught us really well, with great power comes great responsibility. At its core, a generative AI tool doesn't think like we do. It just predicts. It has been trained on vast amounts of data, textual data, learning patterns in how words, ideas, and sentences typically flow. When you give it a prompt, it isn't retrieving from stored memory. It is generating one word at a time by estimating what is statistically the most likely to come next. That's why it can sound fluent and confident even when it is wrong. It doesn't understand meaning or experience. It only models patterns. This is why we are living through a moment of reckoning. We need to ask not only what AI can do, but how it compels us to reflect on what it means to think, to write, and to be human. So, let's begin with the first chapter, thinking. In a recent session with data science students, I asked them to describe a complex socio-economic problem in their own words. Then use an AI tool to refine it. Many accepted the very first AI output. And they did so uncritically. The phrasing was fluent, but the framing was flattened. An Indian problem suddenly sounded too American. Nuance disappeared. If thinking becomes outsourced, if the first draft of a thought comes from a machine, we risk losing ownership of our mental frames. What remains is convenience, not clarity. You see, thinking is the silent architecture of our mind. It is slow. It is non-linear. It is sometimes contradictory and often very messy. And yet, it forms the unseen threads that just hold our decisions, our beliefs, and our identities, all of that together. Generative AI challenges this process in subtle ways. It makes it tempting to outsource the struggle of forming an idea, the discomfort of ambiguity, and the discipline of reflection. But that struggle is where meaning lives. It is the place where we build the muscles of autonomy. You see, thinking is something that humans do. This is our own unique power. It is what sets us apart from other living, breathing beings, and most definitely from computers. Generative AI is something that empirical studies have also traced. Empirical studies suggest a paradox. Some research shows that generative AI can boost individual creative productivity, helping people generate ideas quite quickly. And yet, other studies warn that relying on AI can erode the skills of critical thinking and originality, especially when users do not engage reflectively and critically with the output. Notably, a recent meta-analysis also found that while AI assists idea generation, the quality and diversity of those ideas, they tend to converge. It reduces distinctive, truly novel perspectives. Here's something that I tried with my classroom. This is a prompt. It says, describe the socio-economic consequences of rural-urban migration in India in 2 paragraphs. I would like you to take a moment and read through the 2 paragraphs that an AI tool has generated. If you notice, all text that is marked in blue is an average approximation. It is as generic as it could be. All text that is marked in red is an estimation. It is shirking away from taking the responsibility of making a claim. You read words like often, can, may, might. These are the words that don't give us a clear picture. They lead us to ambiguity. They lead us to make faulty judgment. Once again, all the text marked in blue are undefined terms. They are open to interpretation. It lacks a certain depth of clarity. So this kind of an exercise pushes us to ask some key questions. Number 1, what assumptions does this text make? Are there things that it is assuming that we don't really know? Moving on. What voices are missing? You see, the tone is quite flattened, quite robotic. What voices, what nuances of human experience are missing from such an output? What nuances vanish? What kind of complexities of human experience does this not reflect? And in the end, who benefits from this narrative? And who disappears from it? Is it from a 10,000 feet view where people are making judgments based on lived experiences of others? Or is it a ground level view where people empathize with those going through the migration and can understand the complexities that they are living through? We must reclaim thinking as an internal, critical process. Use AI as a mirror, not as a crutch. AI literacy then means understanding that every prompt is an expression of a worldview, a belief, a decision. The model does not think for us. It extends the consequences of our thinking. So pause. Frame the question, then write it yourself. Let AI reflect your thoughts, not dictate them. From thinking then, we arrive at its manifest form, writing. Let me tell you another story. While teaching a class on communication and technology, I noticed a student paste a rough idea into a generative AI text tool. They produced a polished essay in minutes. On the surface, flawless structure, good vocabulary. But the moment their peers read it, they said, it sounds like this could come from anyone. There was no voice. The text was just echoing empty, animated approximations. Writing has always been an act of meaning making. It is where thought takes form, where emotions become expressions, where the innate becomes ornate. But in an age where words can be generated endlessly, writing risks becoming a performance of fluency rather than an assertion of insight. The danger is not that AI writes for us. It is that we forget why we write at all. When writing becomes a matter of prompts and generation, we risk losing the very fingerprint that reveals lived experience, perspective, and intention. The you behind the words disappears. Once again, on the research front, recent empirical studies show that generative AI can influence creative productivity. In fact, it is constructive for those who struggle to structure ideas. However, studies also show that while productivity and polish, these terms are on the rise, the distinctiveness and the originality of author voice tends to disappear. Texts become more average, more similar across different users. Once again, I have a prompt demo for you. Write a 100-word narrative from the perspective of a high school student discovering AI for the first time. Take a moment, read through the AI-generated output. Again, all text marked in blue is an average approximation. All of this shows that the AI shirks away from any semblance of clarity. You see words like an online chatbot, questions about my homework. None of that is clear what it wants to say. One thing that was quite amusing to me is that it reads computer science class. A high school student, an average high school student across many boards in India, does not call their computer periods computer science class. Trust me, I checked. So this is an average approximation of what a high school student's experience may sound like. A generalization, an average expression. It also pushes us to ask some more questions. What are those questions? Number one, what is missing here? What does it not represent? Does this sound like a lived experience or a generic template? Can you fill in with more lived details? Could this be your voice or just anyone's voice? Does this have your own personality embedded within the text? What emotions, what conflicts, or specific details are absent from this text? If we struggle with the mental models of writing, we can use AI to scaffold structure. Then write, revise, and reinsert your voice. Treat AI-generated text as a draft, not a final one. In this sense, writing becomes a site of resistance. Each sentence is an act of authorship, a small yet strong assertion of autonomy in a world of infinite authorless text. Retain ownership radically. Ensure that the writing remains yours. To quote Balaji Srinivasan, use AI as middle to middle, not end to end. As we enter deeper into this era, the most profound question is not what AI can do. It is, what does it mean to remain fully human alongside it? Being human is defined by agentic curiosity, our undying, almost desperate need to ask why instead of just what. It is defined by interpretation, by the ability to read between the lines, by the intuition that something feels off, even when the data is right. It is defined by our capacity for wonder, for doubt, for meaning. AI can replicate patterns, but only we can recognize purpose. As an illustration, in 2024, a survey of creative writing students found that many already rely on generative AI tools while drafting poems, stories, and essays. They cited convenience, speed, and polish. However, over time, some reported lower confidence in their own ability. The concern isn't only skill decay or intellectual bankruptcy. It is alienation. If our writing, our thinking, our creative gestures become mediated, filtered, shaped by models trained on aggregated human work, what remains unique about us? We need to keep reminding ourselves that the more powerful our tools become, the more intentionality we must hold in our hands to the qualities that cannot be automated. Creativity cannot be defined solely by the volume of output. Creativity breathes free in identity, in agency, and in interpretation. When machines generate content, we risk blurring the lines between what is personal insight and what is mass data remix. Scholars call this the creative double bind, a tension between using AI for efficiency and preserving human autonomy. Staying human requires intention, authorship, and reflection. It means choosing when to use AI and when to resist convenience. It means protecting creative identity. It means attending to nuance, empathy, interpretation, those things that machines do not text. Retain autonomy of thought and creativity. We stand today at a crossroads. Generative AI is a capable collaborator, but only if we wield it with awareness. Otherwise, its deceptions and hallucinations are already known to every user. I invite you, thinkers, writers, creative disruptors, to treat AI not as a substitute of your own mind, but as a mirror for it. Pause before you prompt. Reflect before you generate. Write, then rewrite. Assert authorship. Because we risk losing not just the skill, but our human singularity, our voice, our perspectives, our values. Let us honor these unseen threads of insight, of memory, and of individuality. Let us keep thinking our thoughts. Let us keep writing our stories. Let us keep staying human. Because to assert humanity, attention is indeed all you need. Thank you.